Was this here before? I didn't even see it.
Come up. Okay, let's see if we can start getting everybody, kick that up a little bit. Kick that. Okay, so if we can see everybody start finding their seat. Oh, we're just doing a weird.
Is it the laptop?
Stand over just a teeny bit.
Stand over.
I don't know if it's like critical mass, both of us standing here or something, or if it's my computer. Okay. All right. Just keep it up. Okay, everybody find their seats. Hope you had a good break. Got some coffee, found the bathroom, visited with friends. Welcome you back to the second part of our morning. And we are really blessed to have Bishop Elizabeth Gardner with us this morning. I just want to say, Martha and I met Elizabeth and Chris when we were we were faculty for the new baby bishops. She was a little baby bishop a couple years ago. And her husband, Chris, went to Sewanee, so immediately I was like, yeah, he's a good guy.
Were you all in the same fraternity?
I don't know about that.
ATO? No. No, not at the same time.
Not at the same time. Yeah, he was a few years after me. She's so much younger than I am. Anyway, so we met them as a couple there and began to like them very much and become friends. And through the House of Bishops, we've continued to be friends, and she's a trusted colleague of mine. Then we had the real opportunity at the Lambeth Conference in England, where we gather bishops every 10 years from all around the Anglican Communion. And so most of the bishops there, you won't be surprised, are men. And so some of the women bishops were sprinkled around with these men, which is I think sort of a tough thing to be about or to witness that. And I happened to be in one of the groups that had Elizabeth in it. So we were sort of holding up the American church. Sometimes that was a good thing. Sometimes it was not a good thing. But bishops from all over, Singapore, Sudan, South America. And so we bonded sort of around that experience too. But just a couple of quick biographical details. You can look her up on the web and find more out about her. But she was born and raised in Colorado and California. She was a political science major with an emphasis on public policy from the University of California in Santa Barbara. She moved to Washington, D.C. after college. She worked on Capitol Hill for the congresswoman from Nevada. And before the Holy Spirit called her into ordained ministry, she worked for Nordstrom and later had her own political consulting firm. She attended the Virginia Theological Seminary. She served both in there's some clapping to Virginia Seminary. I hear it. After Virginia Seminary, served both in the Diocese of Washington and then in the Diocese of Virginia before she was elected, and then consecrated as the 11th bishop in Nevada, sort of coming back home to where she was born and raised. You might remember that former presiding Bishop Catherine Jefferts Schori was one of her predecessors. She and her husband Chris have 2 daughters, and I would ask you to warmly welcome Bishop Gardner.
I'm just delighted to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I bring you greetings, but first we have to kind of set something straight. So it's Nevada. It's not Nevada. East Coasters, my husband included, he says Nevada. No. It's Nevada, and this is the license plate of one of my senior wardens. But I am delighted to be here with you today and just bring prayers for a faithful and fruitful annual convention. It is a really special time to be part of the church. And let me just tell you, I'll tell you a little bit more about Nevada in a second, but y'all have it nice here. My goodness, I don't have that. I don't have a banner with my seal on it. And I was telling this story. So the diocesan office used to be in Las Vegas. And then my husband said, absolutely not. And the cathedral is in Reno. So I said, well, let's move the office to Reno. And one of the things that helped me make that decision was that the office was in a strip mall in Las Vegas. And on one side was a CBD dispensary. And on the other side was a popcorn store that has in pink neon lights, "Get Popped in Vegas." So we moved to the cathedral. But let me just tell you a little bit about Nevada. So I call us Nevada Plus. We're like Disney Plus. We're the premium package. We have churches all across the state of Nevada and one in Arizona. So we try never to forget that little Arizona church. We're 110 square miles, so I'm the 5th largest diocese in the Episcopal Church. Alaska, Montana, right? Arizona, New Mexico also as part of West Texas, and then Nevada, and we all have single bishops. And it is 8 hours to drive from the northernmost church to the southernmost church, right? Elko. And there's no flying. I'm not Catherine Jefferts Schori. I don't have a plane and a pilot's license. I'm not that smart. And then it is 7 hours from the west to the east. So you can imagine, and also, I don't know if you know this, but Nevada has the loneliest highway in America. Has anybody ever been on that? Well, guess what? It is not the loneliest highway in America. The one below it is way lonelier, that goes right through the middle of Nevada. So Nevada's kind of a crazy, interesting place. I did work for Barbra Republican from Nevada, when I first moved to D.C., and I was working on Capitol Hill. But we are a lot like you, right? We have big churches, and we have little churches. We have rural churches. We have urban churches, and we have suburban churches. So we have everything that you have. And they all bring their greetings to you for this great annual convention. Okay, so it is true, I've only been a bishop for about 2 years. My anniversary is in March, so my 3rd anniversary is in March. And you can tell that I'm a new bishop because I forgot my pectoral cross. So I kind of just look like Mark without a cross up here. It was supposed to be fancier. But I was in the Diocese of Virginia and the Diocese of Washington. I was at the National Cathedral, and I did work for Bishop Mary Ann. And I went to that service, those president's service. Well, you can clap if you want. You don't have to if you don't want. I can trust you people in Nevada are not that happy. So, we say in Nevada our motto is battle born, and I can tell you where that comes from. But really, it's you're not the boss of me. So I do come to the episcopacy, though, with very diverse experience. I was called late. That's actually not true. I was called early, and I didn't go to seminary. Even though I was a postulant. So I went to seminary later, and I just got a DD. Does anybody have a PhD in here? If you have a PhD, you call it DD a didn't do it, because it's an honorary doctorate. And I just got my honorary doctorate at VTS, and they introduced all the other bishops. And Phyllis, your bishop, Phyllis, who's in Utah, she was there. Phyllis has been working on beloved community her whole ministry. Carrie has been working on conflict resolution her whole ministry. Doug Scharf in Virginia was a PK, and now he's been working on the church. Elizabeth was in retail, so that's pretty much how it went. But I do bring a different perspective, I think, and I am not so churchy as to believe that the culture doesn't have something to say to us in this time. So I'm going to kind of bring that to our conversation today. And I just want you to know, so there, in all of my experience in politics and at Nordstrom and at nonprofits and training firefighters and all this stuff that I've done, everybody wants the same 2 things. They want to know that they matter and what they do matters. And we are good at those 2 things. We can help people with those 2 things. You can help people with those 2 things. And the reason you can help people with those 2 things is because you're the leaders of the church. Every single one of you in this room was chosen by your church to be here today. You are the leaders of our church, and we rely on you. As my friend Donna said in my consecration, Christ will come again. The 1950s will not. And so we are going to rely, the church, are going to rely on everybody in this room, the leaders of the church. But let me tell you a little bit about how I describe leadership in the church. It looks a lot like a roller coaster. Does anybody remember? Okay, so my friend Karen grew up across the street from me in Pueblo, Colorado. Karen's household, she was the youngest of 3. Very youngest of 3, like her sister and brother are much older, and I'm the oldest of 5 and 6.5 years. And so I loved being at Karen's house. Karen's house was quiet. Karen's house was peaceful. Karen's house was clean. And so Karen's parents would take me on vacation. And one time they took us to Denver, to Elitch's. Now think amusement park, that's what they called it, but don't think Disneyland. Think like county fair that doesn't move. And so we're Gen Xers. Karen's parents, like feral cats, let us run around the entire amusement park, and we used to ride this roller coaster. It was white, it was wooden, and it was rickety. Does everybody remember that roller coaster? Yeah. Remember where you get in and it's not actually a car, like they'd say you're in a car, but you're really in like a cardboard box. And you had this little lap belt. And do you remember how you would catch the chain that would take you up and go, right? Kind of jerk your head back. And you go up and it's like, tick, 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 tick. Do you remember that? And it would make you rethink your life choices. And you would go all the way up. But then there was that moment where you're at the top, there's no more ticking, right? You've left the chain, and the wind is kind of blowing in your face, and you can see the whole world, or in my case, Denver, and you could see everything. And then you would whoosh down as fast as totally not safe, flying around, up and down. Your head felt like it was going to pop off. You're going around and around and this way and that way. And just when you think you can't take it anymore, you catch another one of those little chains, right? And it go tick, tick, tick. And you're like, oh, God, here we go again. And then, right, and you go round and around and around. And you come back in the station, and you're like this. And then you'd hear it catch again. And you're like, oh, God, it's not over yet. That's church leadership, friends. I'm not kidding. And I can talk to you about your baptism. I can talk to you about how you were chosen. You were set aside. You were anointed. You're something special. All of that is true. And the church needs you right now, anointed, set apart, something special. But the baptismal covenant guides us, but sometimes I just don't feel like it prepares us for everything we're going to encounter. So what does leadership look like now? So at Nordstrom, when I was at Nordstrom, we used an upside-down triangle. Now, it's not unique to Nordstrom. Home Depot uses it, and I did a little Google search to see if other companies use it. I think there's lots of them that do. But anyway, the idea is, if you're the customer at Nordstrom, you're at the very top. So you're the salespeople are the most important people at Nordstrom. Then below that are the managers, the buyers, the store managers, right? Down like this. If I wanted to know what my customer wanted, I asked Linny, my best salesperson at Pentagon City. I didn't ask anybody else because she knew. I didn't need 7th Avenue to tell me. I didn't need fashion shows in New York to tell me. I knew that Linny knew exactly what our customer needed, and it worked. Church leadership, I think, is the same. And as your bishop, not your bishop, but as a bishop in the church, I'm at the bottom of the pyramid. My job is to lift up the people, the leaders, you, so that you can reach the people in the pews, and you, the people in the pews, reach the unchurched, the non-believer, the person who was hurt, anybody who doesn't know the love of Jesus, right? So that's the most important group. Then the congregation, and then you're the chunk of the triangle in the middle. And then as a bishop of Nevada, my job is to lift up the leaders. Now, some of those leaders are clergy. Some of those leaders are lay. Nevada's probably on the cutting edge of where the church is going, the Episcopal Church, because there are fewer. I was just talking to Reverend John Adams, right? There are fewer and fewer clergy coming. And so I'm Italian, so I talk with my hands. So there are fewer and fewer clergy. So we're going to rely more and more on lay leadership to support and guide and walk with our churches. So my job is at the bottom of the pyramid. But what I thought we would talk about today is how leaders like you cannot rely on me. And the reason I say that is because even though I'm at the bottom of the pyramid, I don't have anything that you have. I don't have any money. I don't have an endowment. I don't get money from 815. So we live off of what we bring in. And so I don't have staff. I have one person who helps me. Her name is Holly. She's the diocesan administrator, and we are the only 2 full-time employees in the diocese. Thankfully, I have a standing committee president who donates his time, but otherwise, it's just us. So you can't rely, you, the leaders of the church, can't always rely on the diocese to do anything for you. And let me give you an example of what happened in Nevada. So we had a church who came to us in January and said, we can't pay our mortgage. And I said, that's really too bad, because neither can I. So I gave them a check from the discretionary fund. My discretionary fund is tiny compared to other bishops. And I gave them enough to give them a couple of months. And we negotiated with the note holder. And I'm telling you, this church is not beautiful. How about that? This was a building that Marilyn Monroe changed in during the filming of The Misfits. So it's okay, right, if maybe we can't pay the mortgage. And so, but they love this building. They love this building. So we negotiated with the note holder, and he said, I'll make you a deal. You can stay there. You can pay the utilities and the insurance. I'll put it up for sale. I'm telling you, I didn't think that thing would ever sell. Ever, ever, ever. And was I wrong? And so at the end of the year, in December, we had to deconsecrate that church. And now they meet in someone's living room. And a priest comes once a month and celebrates the Holy Eucharist with them. And a standing committee member comes. And it's beautiful. Now, is it what they wanted? No. But because they were transformational leaders, because they had this gift of thinking differently, we were able to take something that didn't seem that great and turn it into something beautiful. And so that is kind of what I want to talk to you today about. Like I said, we're ahead of you a little bit, I think. Now, I talked to Virginia when I was at VTS in October. I talked to a friend of mine who graduated with me, and she's like, oh, no, we're going to be fine in Virginia. We've got plenty of priests. I'm telling you that it's coming. And so we need y'all to be strong, adaptive leaders, clergy and lay. And it means that we need to do two things. So this is what we're doing in Nevada for the next for this year particularly, but next 2 years. We're going to strengthen our episcopal identity, and we're going to develop adaptive leaders. Now, I have to tell you, the episcopal identity part, that's easy, right? That's more on the Book of Common Prayer. That's more on the Anglican Communion. That stuff is easy. But creating adaptive leaders is the hard part. And we're going to try to get leaders who are not looking for the technical fix. Have you all heard the difference between technical fix and adaptive leader? A technical fix is where you say, I can do, like St. Hugh of Lincoln, if I'd written them a check, that was a technical fix, right? I took care of the problem. We're looking for adaptive leaders who want to shift culture, who want to think differently, who want to do the work of the church in ways it's never been done before. So I have 2 daughters, as you mentioned, and they come to me with their boyfriend problems or whatever, and I say, do you want the technical fix or do you want the adaptive change? And they're like, oh, Mom, stop priesting me. But the question is, right, do you want him to show up for Sunday dinner, or do you want to create a long-term relationship with him where he respects you and your family and your traditions, right? So those are the questions that we ask. So those are the kinds of things. So the first thing that we're looking for in our adaptive leaders is empowering others. So I'll tell you the story of 2 churches. There's a church in Northern Virginia where the rector holds control of everything. Every service, every ministry, every group that comes on that property, everything goes through that rector. He's very busy. He knows exactly what's going on. He has a tight ship. He runs a tight ship. Across the river is another church. That rector has empowered the clergy and the congregation to invite others. The church in Northern Virginia is surviving. The church across the river is thriving. Now, the church across the river, that rector still does the inquirer's class. That rector still knows everybody in that church, and it is a growing, thriving church. But he's created avenues for people to belong before they believe. So you can read to children. You can build houses. You can arrange flowers. You can't get on the altar guild. But you can do most everything, right? Let's be honest, the altar guild is the most powerful organization in the church. You can do almost everything before you become a member of that church. And so it feels inclusive, it's growing, it has energy. And the other church is so tightly held that it's that technical fix, right, versus the adaptive change. So one of the things you have to do as leaders, all of you, is empower others. The best leaders do this. They draw the circle wider. They bring in new people. They bring in new ideas and new voices. Now, one of the problems when you do that, if you're a recovering perfectionist like I'm a 1 on the Enneagram, is people can't do it as well as you, right? No one's really going to do it just like you. They might do it better. But the key is that you're not doing everything. If you overvalue your importance, you are undervaluing the people around you. If your fingerprints have to be on everything, pretty soon they're only going to be your fingerprints at that church. You can't be the center of everything and have a healthy church. So I'm not going to say a growing church, because I think some of us who have small churches, we keep saying we're looking to grow. And I agree. The Episcopal Church went up 35% 2022 to 2023. So we're excited about that. We're just going to get our 2024 numbers pretty soon. And we're excited about the growth. But it's not all about growth. I want to talk health. I think we want healthy churches. Healthy churches grow. But first, let's look at health. Who was great at empowering others? Jesus. Jesus was great at empowering others. Jesus chose the disciples. Jesus spent time with them. He empowered them. Go into the world. You just heard it from Bishop Mark. Go into the world. Make disciples. Baptize in my name. He was clear. Clarity is kindness. He was clear, and he said to them, go and do the same. It was the world's first train the trainer. He went out and he taught them how to do it, and he didn't tell them how to do it. He told them why to do it, right? Allowing them to make mistakes. Good Lord, thank goodness for Peter. Man, that guy failed all the time. He's my spirit animal. I mean, honestly, Jesus came alongside, put his arm around, walked with, let him make mistakes. And I'm not saying don't correct, right? That is not who we are. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying you do it in a way that empowers others. And when you do this empowering, you want to make sure that you're not just giving them tasks. Somebody who does that is a manager. You guys are not managers. You're leaders. Leaders empower, managers delegate tasks. So they might make mistakes, but that's okay. You're going to come alongside of them, and you're going to invest in them. Okay, so the other thing that I think great leaders do, they empower others. They also invest. If you want a Diet Coke, which I always do, but I try not to drink, you give $1, you get a Diet Coke, right? That's an exchange. That's not investing. That's spending. You want to invest. You want to spend time, spend resources, investing them in people, in places, in relationships. It's all about investing. We want to rethink the way we look at our resources. We talk about time and talent and treasure. Let's rethink the way we talk about those in our vestry meetings, in our finance committee meetings, in our executive board. We're investing. We want to invest in people. We want to invest in our relationships. We want to invest in our buildings. We want to invest in them so that they can be centers of the community, so that they're a place of attraction where people feel safe to come, no matter what, member, not member. If they've never been there before, we want to make that an invested place where they feel safe. We want to invest what we have with kingdom returns always in the back of our mind, right? Spending is one-to-one. We want kingdom returns. Our God is a big God who can give us more than we can ever ask or imagine. So let's invest in others and expect kingdom returns. Okay, so if you want to invest your time in people and relationships, you want to also invest your talent. What is something that you can do that maybe nobody else does in your church? How can you invest that in others? How can you invest your treasure? How can you invest your time? So you can have control and you can control your spending. But if you do that, you're going to control to the point of shrinking. You have control. You have control of your calendar. You have control of your time. You don't have to do everything. You have to do what the Altar Guild asks you to do. But you don't have to do everything that everybody asks you to do. You are in control of you. So make sure that you are casting vision. When you're investing, you're casting vision. You're encouraging others, and you're expecting a return. So that goes back to the video, right? You can make an investment in an All Hallows Eve service and learn from that. And not just learn from that, but make it something different and better and special, right? You don't have to keep going down the same rabbit hole. If you're an investor and you have money in the stock market and it's going down, you pull it out, right? So think investment instead of spending. Okay, the third thing is seeing possibility. So we want to empower others, we want to invest in others, and we want to see possibilities. Okay, this is one of my churches. No lie. If you drove there today, this is the sign that is outside that church. We all have problems. I have problems, you have problems, they're inevitable. They come in all shapes and sizes. And some of them come from decline, right? We don't have as many people, we don't have as much money. Some come from growth. We need more parking spaces. We need to hire new staff, and they're not available. We need to expand our children's ministry. We don't have the space. So problems come in all shapes and sizes. But as leaders, we want to see possibilities. Colin Powell, a great Episcopalian, was known to say that if you as a leader, you are a problem solver. If people don't bring you their problems, they either think you don't care or you can't do something about it. So the minute people stop bringing you problems, you stop leading. Your value that you give your church is your ability to solve some problems. And they might be big, they might be small, but you need to be able to solve the problems that people bring to you. Not by yourself. Remember, you're empowering others and you're investing yourself. Now, when you do this, you have the ability to see possibilities. And let me just say, I spent my first year as a bishop not going, ooh, look, possibility. I spent my first year going, ooh, problem. This is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. But we believe, right? We believe in a big God. We believe in belief. We may have limited resources, but we have unlimited love. And we can do this. And so even though we have the same problems, this is what the church has been doing for 2,000 years, right? Is taking a problem and solving it. That's what ministries are. Ministries are exactly that. So you are problem solvers by seeing possibilities. And so, like I said, I got problem after problem after problem, and I didn't go, oh, yay, this looks like an opportunity. This looks like a possibility. But I had to change the way I responded. So I invite you to change the way you look at the problems that are coming to you. Be grateful that people are bringing them to you because that means you're a leader. And then figure out a way to do something about it because the value you bring is your ability to solve problems. And again, I'll just tell you about a story of a church in northern Nevada. So I invited my friend Michael to come and be the interim. I'm like, this is going to be such a cush job. Nothing is wrong in this church. Everything is awesome. You're going to have such a good time. The parish administrator was stealing. Did you know that we lose more money to fraud in the church than we give away in mission? That's a true story. Yeah. So he had to work on episcopal identity and adaptive leadership. The first thing he did about episcopal identity is we got rid of the bulletin, right? Who loves a fabulous bulletin with every word in it? Me, I do. We started using the hymnal, we started using the BCP, and he did teaching around it because the person that had been there, the rector that had been there for 28 years, always had a bulletin, never did any teaching around it. They didn't know that page 299 is where the baptismal covenant is. They didn't know, right, where the baptism service is. They didn't know that 355 is 355. And so, how's that possible? So what he did was he did a lot of teaching around episcopal identity by not having a bulletin. And the other thing he did was he empowered the leaders of that church to volunteer their time and talent and treasure because he had to get rid of everybody. The gardener, the sexton. So people were cleaning, people were gardening, people were volunteering, they were buying supplies, they were covering the phones. And what happened was the church came together in a way it never had before. And now we're ready to call a new rector, and she's being arraigned. And so the parish administrator. So it's, but, you know, there are opportunities. When you see problems, there are opportunities. And God does give us what we need. Not always what we want, but God does give us what we need. So the other thing that we want to empower others. We want to invest. We want to see possibilities. And then the fourth thing is we want to be inspirational. We want to inspire those around us. As leaders, you guys are the core of the triangle. As leaders, you want to inspire others. So Bain and Company, you can Google this. Bain and Company did a study, and they came up with 33 traits for an inspirational leader. When I was in the Diocese of Washington, Bishop Mary Ann came out with 7 things that you needed to have in order to be considered for the discernment process to be a priest. I don't think Jesus could hit all 7. Good news, Bain and Company says you only need 2. You don't need all 33 to be an inspirational leader. You only need 2. And there are things like humility, generosity, empathy, being centered, which you can see I'm not. And so there are things that you can do to be an inspirational leader. The thing about inspiration is, inspiration means of the Spirit. It comes from within. Our culture tells us to be motivated. Motivational speakers, books, podcasts, conferences, those are all based on the word that comes from the root word motive. It's external. Carrot or stick, you pick. But that's an external way of doing your life and your ministry. You want to be inspirational. You want it to come from inside. And that goes to what Bishop Mark was saying about centering yourself, putting your hope in Christ, spending time in the Word, spending time in prayer, spending time in church, in fellowship, in relationship. Those are the things that create an inspirational leader. And that's what you can do. Another quick Nordstrom story. So they used to say at Nordstrom, how do you get so many nice people? Do you just, right, you advertise for nice people? And I'm like, no, we just hire nice people. There's no training. You can't train someone to be nice, right? We had half a day on the register and half a day on the governance of Nordstrom. And then they threw us out on the floor. And everybody was, back then, you were promoted from within. So everybody started as a salesperson. We only had 2 rules. Don't steal and don't chew gum. Which, that's actually true. So we could have looked at the way we operated our floor as competitors, but we didn't. We looked at it as a team, and we inspired one another through that. And I'm still friends with those women that I worked with, and I would consider every one of them to be a leader. And so I feel like we empower others, we invest, we see possibilities, and we inspire. And who did all those things? Jesus. Yes! Jesus did that. He was an inspirational leader. And friends, no one, have you seen this? Have you read this? No one was hurt by the church more than Jesus, but he kept showing up. He keeps coming to us where 2 or 3 are gathered. And so we cannot give up on ourselves. We have to be the good news. We have to center ourselves. We have to put our hope in Christ so that, the 2 most important words in the Bible, so that we can do that for others. As leaders in your diocese, Friends, it is up to you. It cannot be up to only Canon Patty, only Bishop Mark. We, all of us, have to shoulder this responsibility. We have to share the good news of Christ. So be an inspirational leader by being inspired yourself. Okay, so this is my last point, and this is the way you can remember these. EIPIO. I thought that was clever. Empower others, invest, see possibilities, inspire, and the O is for, oh my gosh, I can't believe she's going there. So being a leader is not easy. I get it. No one cares as much as you. No one works as hard as you do. No one does as much as you do. Here's the thing. It is not your church. Friends, it is God's church. This belongs to Jesus. We are just stewards. Please stop being so mean to one another, to newcomers, to your clergy to your lay people, to your bishops. We can be kind. We must be kind. It is up to us to model this behavior for others. We need to enter into something that looks like conflict with wonder. Be curious instead of critical. Wonder what is going on with them where they might feel that way. Investigate. Are there areas that are pushing you? Maybe you're wrong. It's possible. I just invite you to consider that this might be a you thing. There are no books, there are no podcasts, there are no conferences that can help you look in the mirror and see if the way you're addressing one another is kind. Please be kind to one another. When people see you, they need to see the face of God. We need bold leaders. We need brave ideas. We need better people. People are looking to us to be that in the world. And you are leaders. That means you have influence in your schools, in your families, in your homes, at work, in the grocery store parking lot. Be leaders all the time. It's exhausting. Remember, I know this. But I invite you, empower others, invest, see possibilities, be inspired yourself so that you can be an inspiration by being kind. Undergird all of that with being kind. The question you might want to ask yourself is, does the leadership of the church reflect the people you're trying to attract? Maybe it's time for new leadership. It's a biblical thing. There's pruning, there's harvesting, there's sowing. Leadership should be joyful and exciting. I know it's hard, but it's also really rewarding. So ask yourself, are you the right leader at this time? And if you are, I encourage you to go all in. And if you're not, it's okay to say, I want to walk alongside somebody else and bring them in. And as I said earlier, draw the circle wider, bring in new ideas, new suggestions, so that we can be an example for the world. Like I said, I feel like the culture has something to say to us. We have a huge message for the culture. The de-churched want to find belonging. We have that. The young kids want to have an ancient tradition. We have that. We have what the world needs. We read the gospel in an open and loving way that almost nobody else does. Right? So let's share it. Let's share the good news with others. But darn it, and this is not a lie. People come in and sit down, and what do they say? You're sitting in my pew. What? How about saying, can I sit next to you? My name is Elizabeth. I'm glad you're here. I'm just going to say one little tiny thing that's not in the script or anything that anybody said. When you pass the peace and you think it's coffee hour, and you're all over, it's recess, right? And you're all over the church, make sure you greet that person who is new. Because I can guarantee you from the platform, or up here, the altar, we can see that the only person that is not getting the peace is the new person. Every single time. Make sure when you pass the peace, you include everyone sitting in the congregation. That's leadership. That's the way we set our hope on Christ. That is the way we become great stewards for the next generation. I want to pass on a church to my girls that they're proud of. And they want an inclusive church. They don't want a happy, clappy church. They want the hymns. They want the creed. They want what they know, and they want to bring their friends. But they want to be welcomed in Chicago, in Tennessee, in Nevada, in Virginia. So, all right, let's go back to our roller coaster, right? Roller coasters now are safer. Roller coasters now have like straps that keep you in, but it's still a roller coaster ride. Friends, I know that this church leadership stuff is hard. I do. But together, we are all in this together. We can do this. And if cauliflower can be pizza, then we can be anything. So let's go out into the world, putting our hope in Christ and rejoicing in the power of the Spirit. Amen. None of these ideas are mine, right? I'm a student of church leadership. So these are the guys that, in particular, that I go to. If you're interested in church leadership, Adam Hamilton is a Methodist pastor in Kansas. He started with 12 people. He's got 25,000. Brady Shearer does social media. He does websites. He does all that. If you want, he's so funny. And Craig Rochelle is the pastor of Life Church. He also started with 12 in his garage in Oklahoma. He's got the largest church in the United States. None of these are Episcopal, obviously. Andy Stanley. But they love us. They're coming back to the table. Have you noticed that? All these traditions are coming back to the table. Andy Stanley, North Point, he's Charles Stanley's son. He started a church for the he's the first, he was the pioneer of the mega church, of the three worship songs, that model that we don't like. But he is an amazing leader in Atlanta. Harry Newhoff was a Presbyterian. He left his denomination, he was like us. He had 3 little churches yoked together. I think his average Sunday attendance with all 3 was 27. And now he has a huge church in Canada that he has passed on. So if you want succession planning and things like that. Also, not up here, Kara Powell at Fuller, does a lot on youth, young adults, youth family. Barna, David Kinnaman at Barna is amazing. And Ryan Burge, who just wrote De-Churched. He didn't write it, but he did all the stuff for it. He's going to be at one of our Episcopal conferences. And Ed Stetzer, Southern Baptist, who has left, he found God in an Episcopal church in Florida. So he, again, our theologies may not align, but boy, do they know how to build leaders.
I just said to Elizabeth, I'm never going to be able to be as funny as that now, or as engaging, and I certainly wish I could do that with my hair. So Patty has some announcements for us, and will get us oriented for what we need to do next and what's coming with lunch.
All right. Could we just give an ovation for Bishop Elizabeth one more time? Wow. And now announcements. Isn't that exciting? Yeah. So, yeah, I get the best timing. Just a couple of announcements. We're still awaiting election results. So lunch is at 12 noon. Again, it will be buffet out there. If you will please get your tickets out, that helps us with count. And so you'll go through the buffet, sit in the same part of the ballroom in the dining area. And you can also, when we finish here, go to the exhibit hall. You don't have to go immediately to lunch, but the food will be out for about a half an hour. But don't forget about the exhibit hall. I brought my display here. Jonathan has his books, as does Jan Fuller, there, and they will be able to sign those at various times. But please think about the exhibit hall. Visit those folks that are in there. Lunch is at 12 with your ticket. How's bingo going? Anybody have bingo yet? Bingo. All right. Well, don't forget to collect your bobblehead. Now, here's the thing, because good thing we're not competitive here. I've had some people come up to me and say, well, I didn't go to orientation. I've been coming for years. So what do I do with that square? We're just going to make a few things up to fill those squares, but keep working on it, and thank you all for doing that. Those bobbleheads are still out there. After lunch, we have exciting and really informative workshops. This afternoon, it's almost too much to choose from. I would like to go to about 4 of them, but I have to go to the one I'm doing. So they are wonderful. I encourage you, if you have several people from your church here, to spread out, get the wealth that is being distributed, and take that back to your parishes and to your convocations and to your communities. So Jonathan and I are going to talk about the workshops for a moment. They're in your booklet, but we also wanted to talk about them. Jonathan has worked to plan several of those out, and I have worked on a couple of others. So the first one, as Bishop Mark referred to in his address this morning, is from the Beloved Community Guiding Team. They will be having a workshop on this level, and not just talking about those grants. Because before you apply for a grant, you need to think about what you're doing. And the guiding team is there to talk with you, walk through a process, think about those ideas that you can come up with in your community for your church to engage and get to know other people. Work on that ministry of reconciliation and work and walk with those people who are marginalized. And so they will be in there with you at 1:15. We have information up here. And you don't have to, I just put that in the thing because I get that question a lot. Well, I've taken sacred ground. Now what do I do? How can I go fix something? Well, let's think about, before we think we're going to go fix something, who we're talking with. Even more important, who we're listening to. And that's what the guiding team will help you with in that workshop. And so I encourage you to go in there. After they talk about that, then they'll talk about the grants and that process. Okay? The next opportunity is, after Bishop Mark told me what Bishop Elizabeth was going to speak about, I got inspired, as I know you all did hearing her, but immediately the thing that came to my mind was someone who inspired me, Verna Dozier. And Verna wrote a book called The Dream of God. I had the opportunity to work with Verna, and we are going to talk about the dream of God. I am not going to talk for an hour and a half because that would be bad. So I am smart enough, as I carry Jesus with me, to invite my friends to help. I invited my new friend, Bishop Gardner, to be part of that. Martha Berlakis will be there. And the 3 residents of the Norwich community, which is a new young adult community in Radford that is sponsored by Grace. And we will be talking about the dream of God, and especially focusing on the laity and how to live out our baptismal covenant as good leaders. So I invite you to that workshop. And Jonathan is going to talk about the other opportunities of workshops now.
So the other workshops will be an extension to the video highlights we saw earlier. And so those will be down the hall and in the downstairs level. So there'll be 4 workshops divided into 45-minute sections, and so feel free to go between each of them. One workshop on practicing welcome and kind of how to put into practice the Invite, Welcome, Connect principles, how to do ministry with children in a small church, how to go about ministry with an experimental mindset, and how to use media to expand your ministry footprint.
Why is everybody so tall in this diocese? Except for me. So just to be clear, the first 2, Becoming Beloved Community, A Call to Action, and The Dream of God, will be the full hour and a half, okay? The others are 45-minute sessions, and you can go to one and then the other. You don't have to stay in the same room. And you could go back and forth. You can stay in the Monroe room or the Wilson room, back and forth. Is that clear? Does anybody have any questions? Okay, awesome. Okay, we are checking on the tallying, and we might be changing the vote time. They are telling me I need to ad lib. Okay, well, I know. Yes, so as we wait, okay, Jesus, this is where you come in. Come on, help me out. Yes, so I will tell you all a story. So Bishop Elizabeth had that sign that I assume was by a child, but that's an assumption, that the pencil that I love my church.
Do you know where that's from?
No, where is it from? Oh, there you go. In the bathroom. Where was it? St. Paul's K Street, and in Washington, D.C. And I love that because who inspires me are children. And I think it's so important, as you were talking about newcomers, is not even the newcomers, as well, I shouldn't say not even, as well as the newcomers. It's including all ages, because it's very easy to overlook children. And that's my heart. I come from the formation, ministry of formation. And children are the ones who inspire us. And it's important to remember that. My nephew, okay. I'll wrap this story up because now I have an update. But thank you, Jesus. My nephew, I taught him when my sister was taking my niece and nephew to church about receiving communion. And he was pretty small, he was 3 or 4. And I taught him to stand up instead of kneel at the communion rail to get the cup, because it's really hard. A lot of kids, their chin is like right at the rail. And if you've ever tried to be a lay Eucharistic minister or a clergy person giving the cup. And so he stood up and the lay Eucharistic minister just walked right by him. And I don't know if they thought that he was getting up to go or what. And he announced, my family were kind of loud, shocking. I get that Jesus cup too. That afternoon, my sister called. This was her report. Stephen did it again. He's just really loud in church. And this, he yelled, I get that Jesus cup too. And the church lady's going, yeah. And the clergy, the rector of that church, whom I knew, called me and said it was awesome. It was the best teaching moment my people had. And it's so important that we remember that we're all blessed. We are all part of God's family. And we don't have the election results yet. And as part of God's family, we're going to extend grace. And so we are going to push back. And I need everybody to listen carefully. We will push back the voting. I'm just kind of making this up on the fly and looking for a little nod there. Good. What time is it now? 12. The voting will be open from 12:30 to 1. Okay? Again, you have a half an hour period for voting. We will send the email out at 12:30. The calculations should be calculated by then. I will go in to the dining area. You'll see on the next ballot who is left, but I will go in and try and make an announcement in the lunchroom while you all are having lunch as to who the folks are on the ballot, but we will push the voting back from 12:30 to 1. So you will get the email at 12:30 and you have till 1 o'clock to vote. After that, the voting will stop. Okay? Everybody clear with that? That is awesome. Thank you for being kind, and thank you all for your attention. You all can go to the exhibit hall, have lunch, work on your bingo.